Hello, Raliene.
Hi,
Thanks for joining with me. All right, we are live.
absolutely.
We're recording. We're here talking all things trisomy. And I'm so grateful that we have Raliene Banks joining with me. Raliene has been an important part of SOFT over the last few years. And so we'll get into all of that. But Raliene, just wanted to say hello. Thanks for joining with us, taking some time to tell your story, your family's story. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So without further ado, now, if I'm terrible at introductions. So Raylene, I know you probably hate introducing yourself, but I've got to say this. Raylene is the most unassuming, like the job you're about to tell us that you have. It usually doesn't, most people wouldn't guess what you do for a living. And so Raylene, with that like awkward preparatory question here real quick. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what you do. Tell us about the rest of your family, and let's just kind of hear what things are going on in the Banks family right now.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised on the island of Guam. For those of you who don't know what Guam is, it's a U.S. territory in the Pacific Ocean. It's south of Japan and east of the Philippines. Grew up there, left when I was 18 to go to college, eventually ended up joining the Air Force. And I've spent the past 17 years on active duty as an Air Force pilot. My husband and I are stationed at Hill Air Force Base in Utah. He is in the Air Force as well, and that's how we met. We have a son, Asher. We have our daughter, Faith, who had trisomy 13, and she passed away when she was 7 days old. And we have two cats, Porter and Bacon.
I like the name. My children would like the name of your cats. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining with me. And so, what college did you go to? So you left Guam when you were 18. I mean, an island kid, right? I
Hmm.
lived in Hawaii for college, and usually kids that grow up on the island have a kind of a unique way of living. The weather's perfect and what have you.
Right.
Over in Guam, was that the same way? You kind of ran the island, did anything fun there? Was it a different lifestyle adjustment when you came to college here on the mainland, as we like to call it, when I lived in Hawaii?
Yeah,
How was all
very
that?
different. It was very different. Growing up, I lived next to my grandparents and next to my uncle, next to my auntie. It was very family centric. Everybody knew everyone. And leaving it was a huge challenge for me. I moved to North Carolina. I went to a couple of colleges, so I kind of bounced around. I did most of my school at North Carolina State University. I was majoring in aerospace engineering, decided I didn't want to be an engineer and transferred over to Dowling College in Long Island. But it was really tough for me because it was so cold. In Guam, the temperature never goes below 65 degrees for any reason ever. It's hot, it's humid, and I didn't know how to dress for the cold. And I didn't know things like what to do with a coat, things like that you grow up with and you're like, oh sure, this is how we dress for cold weather. This is what we do with our coat when we go inside. I didn't know any of that. So I ended up just buying like a sweatshirt in January and February, and that did not keep me warm at all. So it was definitely a learning process.
Being raised by the village, your grandparents, everybody around you,
Hmm.
then you're on the East Coast.
Yep.
All I hear, because I've actually never spent much time on the East Coast, it's fast paced. So going from like probably, you know, a little slower paced and then boom, cold, fast paced,
Right.
college, all that. Uh,
Yeah.
Out of college, joining the Air Force. Now, this is the cool thing. I love traveling, seeing sights, but like you have a different perspective. You didn't become an engineer, but what did you I'm hinting at, I think you're picking up on it, but man, you and Josh have kind of unique lifestyle of things. You move fast, I should say. You move real fast with your career. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing for the Air Force, what you can tell us.
Sure. Well, for the first, I'd say, trying to do math in my head, for about the first 10 years, I flew airplanes, actually 11 years. I flew the C-17, which is a cargo jet. I flew the RQ-4, which is remotely piloted and it does reconnaissance. And I also flew the KC-135, which is an air-to-air refueler. Josh, he is a weapons systems officer, so not quite a pilot. If you've ever seen the movie Top Gun, he's like Goose. He flies in the back seat and manages the weapons and all that kind of stuff. Um, but in 2019, I faced infertility. And when I went to the doctor to try and figure out what was going on. They told me that I had Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune thyroid condition. So my thyroid was basically making my metabolism super high, which some people are like, "Oh, you're so lucky you have such a high metabolism," but I'm telling you, it's rough. Like I just relapsed recently with Graves' disease, so I'm a little bit symptomatic, and my hands will be a little bit shaky. My voice will be a little bit shaky. You get hot, you unintentionally lose weight, and you're just so tired because your body's using all of your energy just on metabolism and not on the things it needs to be using it for. So you get really weak as well. So because I was diagnosed with that, I lost my ability to fly airplanes for the Air Force. So I could no longer pass my flight physical. So because of that, since the beginning of 2020, I have been doing staff jobs. So I worked at the Pentagon for a couple of years, working in the continuity of operations over there. And now I'm moving into a new job as the Inspector General over at Hill Air Force Base.
I mean, what a career. It's sad. I have a father-in-law who flew commercially for a long time, and here in his post-retirement years, sadly lost that. And so, someone that has been up in the stars, literally up in the sky, the clouds. Sorry to hear you couldn't pass that physical, but still being able to serve our country is quite remarkable.
Yeah, I think everything
But
happens for a reason,
yeah,
Nick. And it's not something that I ever planned for, but having that happen and then having the trisomy diagnosis after that, like we say in soft, there are no coincidences. And
yeah.
I feel like not flying anymore. Yeah, it was really, really hard for me. I was actually a little bit depressed when it happened. But now I get to spend more time with my son and with my family, and I'm very at peace with that.
Agreed. You've still, yeah. I mean, we've said that on a lot of different interviews. There's no coincidences. Okay, so now, like, just you guys are amazing people. Just the things you've done for our country, the cool things you do. All these talented experiences you've had in your career. But yeah, for today's podcast, let's get to the heart of it. You and Josh, tell us about leading up to your daughter Faith, the diagnosis and that situation. Tell us a little bit about how you two met, and then go right into the family dynamics and
Yeah,
Faith.
well, we met while we were deployed to the Middle East. We met randomly on base, and Josh eventually found me on Facebook. And it's kind of weird having people just asked to be your friends on Facebook. So I went to a mutual friend and I said, "Hey, what is this guy weird? Is he cool? Like what's going on?" And my our mutual friend said, "No, he's a really great guy." So we became friends after that. He wanted to learn a lot about the aircraft that I was flying. So that's kind of how we got to know each other. We didn't really start dating until we both went back home to our different bases. I was stationed in I was stationed in California. He was stationed in North Carolina. So then we started dating then. Took took a few years until we were able to get stationed together. And by that time we were already married. So in total we spent 3 years long distance before we moved in with each other. So really unconventional. Dated long distance, got married long distance, and then moved in with each other. After that, I was diagnosed with infertility and with Graves' disease, and it took a while for me to get my thyroid under control. It took a couple of years, and once it was controlled, I got pregnant with Faith. So you can only imagine after 3 years of long distance, couple of years of dealing with the infertility, and finally getting pregnant with our daughter. We were just so excited. Um, I was a little older. I was 37 at the time, so my doctor told me that there is genetic screening that's available to me because I am at a higher risk for having a child with genetic abnormalities. And I didn't really think anything of it. I knew what Down syndrome was. My dad had a sister with Down syndrome who passed away when she was 4 years old. So although it did scare me a little bit, I kind of thought, the chances are still really low that anything could be wrong. But I want to take this test because I want to know if I'm having a boy or a girl. And that's why I did the genetic screening. Uh, we got our genetic screening results via email on a Sunday when we were having lunch at Red Robin. I looked at my phone while Josh was paying the bill. I saw the email that said that the test results were available. And I asked Josh, I said, "Hey, do you want to open this email now or do you want to wait until we get home? And he said, I'd love to know right now. Let's just see. So I open the email and I scroll through it and I see the word female. So I told him, like, hey, we're having a girl. But as we look closer at the results, we also saw the word abnormal. And we were so confused because there were things that we didn't understand. There was the word Patau syndrome, trisomy 13, and a positive predictive value. And we didn't know what it meant. So we Googled trisomy 13, and what we saw just really scared me because we saw babies. We didn't see children, we didn't see adults, we saw babies, and some of them were not alive. So just getting a result like that without having anybody to turn to was really scary for us. And we didn't really know what the chances were that our daughter had trisomy 13 because, like I said, there was a positive predictive value on the test that had, I think it was like 23 or 24%. And we didn't know, does that mean that there's a 23% chance that this test is accurate and it means that our daughter has trisomy 13? Or is there a 23% chance that she doesn't? So we just had a lot of questions, and it was a Sunday, so no one was available to help us. On Monday morning, I called the doctor and asked them, like, hey, can you help me out with this lab result, please? I don't understand it. And they didn't have my lab. So it took a couple of hours calling the lab and calling the doctor, going back and forth, trying to get somebody to talk to us about the results. Long story short, we eventually ended up chatting with the genetic counselor, and we were able to get in to see MFM on Wednesday. So from Sunday to Wednesday, all of this was happening, and we didn't really have a good answer. When we went in to see the maternal fetal medicine on Wednesday, they gave us a detailed ultrasound, and I was really hopeful. I was thinking like, hey, the positive predictive value is 23%, and I understand that this means there is a 23% chance that this is trisomy 13. But there's like a 70 mental math, 77% chance that it's not. So I was very, very hopeful. But then the doctor told us that our daughter had hypoplastic left heart syndrome. She had fluid in her brain. She had echogenic kidneys. She had an omphalocele. And I'm like, well, what does this mean? Is this trisomy 13 or not? And she said, without an amniocentesis, I cannot diagnose her with trisomy 13, but with everything I'm seeing, it is very likely trisomy 13. It is not probably not mosaic. It's probably not partial. This is probably full trisomy 13. And that's when I let myself be sad. I remember Josh and I walking to the car and kind of keeping it together until we got to the car. And then we just broke down crying because we didn't know if we were going to get to meet our daughter. And that was the diagnosis. We didn't go through with the amniocentesis. We were told that there could be a chance of miscarriage if we want to get the amniocentesis, and we decided that we wanted to go through with the pregnancy, and we didn't want to chance the miscarriage. Another reason we decided to not go with the amniocentesis is we didn't know what type of care we would get if Faith was diagnosed with trisomy 13. Unless we got it, there was no diagnosis. There was just a screening, a very likely chance that she had it. And we did not want to paint ourselves into a corner and have some things not available to us because of the diagnosis.
That's fair. I mean, there's a lot to consider there and unpack. Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing such a tender moment that the two of you shared and that you had to go through, going from optimistic, maybe the percentage is still in our favor, and then finding out fairly based on the ultrasound that it looks much more certain than that. Not to say that we hope for, these conditions are things we don't want. As an organization, we support families that end up with them. So I'm with you, all thoughts and prayers at that moment. So now the confirmation's there and setting in, and it's taking time. Um, I think it was wise of you. I mean, it's just only recently, as in from today's recording here in November of 2025, that there was literally medical journals that American Academy of Pediatrics, having the wonderful statement about trisomy 18 and 13. But prior to that, pretty wise to think through, let's just keep our options open. But what a kind of tragic moment. Did you start, where did you turn to for support then? I know you and I have talked a lot about helping families that receive this news. Raylene is one of our, she's really the leader of our new and expectant parent group right now. And she talks to a lot of people and helps get other volunteers to join with us to help in that regard. Um, Thinking back for you, what levels of support, you know, family, friends, organizations, what kind of helped kind of you're sad, you're thinking through, you're making way through this. What did you do next?
Well, our family and friends were, of course, a great support system for us, but I don't think they truly understood what we were feeling. Of course, they can empathize, but they hadn't been through what we were going through. Um, so I wanted to connect with other families who had been through it. I was very lucky. My boss had a friend who had a child with trisomy 18, and he was able to put me in touch with her. And talking to her made such a big difference. She was the very first trisomy parent that I had talked to. And she just put me at ease because I saw that she had made it through. She had made it through the diagnosis. She had made it through the birth and the passing of her child. So she's the one person that sticks out in my mind. Our genetic counselor eventually put us in touch with Soft. And lucky for us, Soft was having their annual conference in Virginia. We were in DC at the time, so it was only a 4-hour drive to conference. As I told Josh, I'm like, we have to go. We have to go. We've met one person, and she had one result of how the diagnosis went. Because I think in my mind, there's three ways that trisomy can pan out. One is you miscarry, or your child is stillborn. Two is your child will be born alive, but it will pass within that 1 year or shortly after birth. And the third circumstance is you can have a child that will live for many, many years, and your child will be very medically complex. So I met a parent who had lost her child through stillbirth. And I wanted to meet other families who had walked other paths because I had no idea what we were in for. I didn't know how long Faith was going to survive. I didn't know if I would miscarry her. So we went to conference and we met several families with kids with trisomy 18. That year, they didn't have any full trisomy 13 children there, but they did have some mosaic. But just seeing the joy of the families, just seeing that the families that did have medically complex children were they were they were fine. They were great. They were living life. And I was afraid to have a medically complex child because I didn't know what life would look like. But seeing them gave me the confidence that we would be able to do it too. And seeing the families that had lost their children gave me hope and gave me confidence that if it happened to us, then we would be okay.
Yeah, there's great power in that. I mean, I'm a sibling. It's soft. When you went to that first conference, you probably saw the, you know, the sibling kids run around at conference. Just if, for those of you who've ever attend after listening to this, the siblings usually run the elevator and run the halls. Sorry, hotels,
The pool.
but and the pool. But yeah, as a parent now of three wonderful children, there can be an understanding. But parent to parent, my wife and I have not walked the shoes that you walked and that others have walked, and so to have that friend that had the trisomy 18 child, to be able to talk to that mom, go to conference, being able to rub shoulders and just see the different perspectives. What reassurance that kind of brings, because yeah, the unknown is severe. There's already unknown. I
Mhm.
remember our firstborn, like I have to swaddle my child. They sleep better with the blanket wrapped around it. Like you watch these nurses do these things, and you think I have to do this now, let alone, G tubes or feeding tubes, different sort of things. So totally understand that there's just so many more questions for families that are going to face that diagnosis in that future. So what joy that brings. Now during, while you were expecting, what other things did you turn to? Were there resources or other groups or books or anything that you want to mention that kind of helped you through those moments?
Soft was the primary organization that we turned to after we had gone to conference. You know, we made our connections there. We got to meet with doctors who had specialized in trisomy, so we were able to show them our medical records and ask for their opinion. And it just made us reassured that what we were doing was the right thing. Another organization that really helped us out too was Isaiah's Promise. They are faith based and they provide emotional support. And they also gave us a lot of things. They gave us personalized hats and necklaces and just a bunch of comforting things, letting us know that they were there, that they cared for us, and that they were thinking of faith. Um, and then the third organization that we really loved that helped us out when Faith was born was the Ronald McDonald House. Um, we I was in the hospital for 4 days. I had Faith via C-section, but after that fourth day, they kind of kick you out. They're like, "Well, you can't stay here. Can't stay in your room anymore. You can't stay in the NICU. So you need to go home." And we lived in DC. On a good day without traffic, we lived 30 minutes away from the hospital. With traffic, who knows how long it would take to get to the hospital. And I just couldn't imagine going home and Faith passing away or something happening to her and I wasn't able to be there. So the Ronald McDonald House gave us a place to stay that was right near the hospital. Um, in the end, the NICU was very, very kind to us. They moved us into a room that was meant for twins, so it was a much larger room than their standard size room, and they moved in 2 beds. So they let us sleep there, they let us stay overnight with Faith, and there weren't a lot of accommodations. It's a NICU. There weren't, like, refrigerators or anything like that in the room that we could use. We still had to go in and out for, um, like laundry or food and things like that. But I was just so thankful that we had so much support.
Some, shout out to those organizations. I know we've talked a lot about um, both of those, so that's awesome. Fantastic. Thank you for them. Hopefully, they get some kudos from this video alone. But what a nice thing and nice gesture. Um, so keep walking us through that scenario, like anything that kind of reminds you of those moments, or um, I know we were talking about smells because we were talking about care packages for candles. Is
Yeah.
there things that just, if it's all right with you, just keep kind of recounting either the days leading up to the C-section or those 4 days at the Ronald McDonald? Like, just feel free to share what comes to mind.
Yeah. Well, my family, my parents were still living in Guam. Are still living in Guam, actually. They've lived there all their lives. So it's not a quick flight to get from Guam to DC. So after I made it to about, I think around 34, 35 weeks, I called them and I said, "Hey, I know I'm not due for a couple more weeks, but these babies tend to be born early. Not a lot of them make it to term. So if you want to meet your granddaughter, you should come now. Come now, stay with me, and we'll see how things go from there." So they took my advice and they made the flight out to DC and they stayed with us. Um, at the time, I was having weekly appointments with MFM. They were doing the biophysical profile and a couple of other tests. When I was at 36 weeks, I went in for one of those tests and they told me that Faith's amniotic fluid had decreased dramatically, which meant that she was in trouble. Um, I was supposed to deliver at 37 weeks. And I think when I had this appointment, I was at 36 weeks and I think 3 or 4 days. I don't remember exactly, but I was thinking, surely if anything's wrong, they're just going to let me wait it out to the 37 weeks unless like something's really, really wrong. So they told me this is something that is really wrong. So instead of waiting a couple more days until your due date, we need you to go into labor now. And I wasn't prepared for it. I was always told to be prepared and to bring our suitcases with us to these appointments, but we didn't listen. So thankfully, my parents were staying at my house. So I remember FaceTiming them and having them go through my drawers and my closets and telling them like what to pack. And my parents didn't have a car. I don't remember how they got us our stuff. I think they had to Uber to the hospital or somebody took them, but eventually they did get us our things. And I had chosen to be induced to have faith. So as we were going through the induction process, I was being monitored, and I remember the nurses coming into the room, and every time Faith's heart would decelerate, and it happened a couple times. They would come into the room, they would kind of adjust me to try and get her heart rate to come back, and it did. It did a couple of times, but it was just happening so much with contractions that I couldn't even feel, that the doctor recommended that we stop the induction because her heart was just decelerating too much. I was told that we could either try it again, hydrate me, and then try the induction again, or we can go to a C-section. And I told the doctor, I'm like, I've already had like a full bag of IV fluid. I don't know if hydrating is going to do much, and the doctor agreed. So we decided to do a C-section. And this all happened at night. So we decided to wait until the morning where we had a full medical crew because the night crew is kind of like the skeleton crew. Not everybody is in the hospital. We decided to wait until morning, um, but that didn't happen because even though we stopped the induction, Faith's heart rate decelerated. And it decelerated so much that when the nurses came back into the room to move me around or give me oxygen, her heart rate didn't come back. So I was told that they had to do a C-section immediately. And I was very afraid because I wanted to meet my daughter alive. And if you have an emergency C-section, which I was told what would happen because of the heart deceleration, I would be put to sleep. Gosh, if I had missed it, if I had missed her being alive, that would have broken my heart. Um, so from my room, they put me onto another table and wheeled me to the operating room. And as they were wheeling me to the operating room, they said, we're going to strap monitors back on you when we get into the operating room. If her heart rate has come back, we will do a spinal tap and you'll get to be awake. But if her heart rate hasn't come back, then we're going to have to do the emergency C section and put you to sleep. And I was just so scared. But I went into the operating room. They put the monitor back on, and you can hear her heart rate immediately. And my doctor turns to me and she says, do you hear that? That's your baby's heart rate. That's your baby's heartbeat. But we need to do the C section really quickly. So hunch your back over. We're going to give you the anesthesia and let's get this going. So that happened. And I got to meet Faith alive. And the really cool thing about the operating room, Josh wasn't allowed to be there at first because they didn't know if it was an emergency C-section or not. So while they were hooking the monitors up to me and everything, I was looking around and my doctor was female. The anesthesiologist was female. So was the NICU doctor. So were all of the nurses. It was a 100% female crew. The only male that was in the room was Josh when he walked in. So that is one thing that stood out to me, working in such a male-dominated field, and I know medicine is a male-dominated field as well, but to have an entirely female um, crew there was kind of incredible. Another thing that's kind of kismet is I had Faith shortly after midnight, and she was born on NICU Awareness Day. So there's just, a couple of things that, we say there are no coincidences that just end up being things that make it kind of special, but she was born and they brought her up to me and I remember they brought her all the way up here to my face, like right by my face for those of you who aren't watching the video. And I turned and I looked at her and she was so close to me that she was out of focus. So I asked them to back her up. And as they backed her up, she opened her eyes and she looked at me. And that wasn't something she did very often, but it was really special because I was the first person and the last person that she saw.
It's touching. I mean, that's awesome. And just so many great memories right there for you and Josh.
Yeah.
But you as the mom being, the giver of life and there when she did look. Um, it was a brief, like these are brief moments. And sometimes that happens with our families. These children face tall odds. It's an uphill battle. That many pass away prematurely, many pass away at at birth, and that's kind of goes with with these scenarios, with these conditions. But for these brief moments for you, that one's touching. Is there any other that stand out for you?
Um, I do remember her meeting her grandparents. My mom came into the NICU with her phone recording, and I remember one of the nurses telling her, like, "Hey, you can't record in here," because they were doing something. I don't remember what they were doing, if they were changing her lines or something, but in the NICU, at least the one I was in, they don't allow you to record any procedures. So I remember them telling her to put her phone away, but she eventually did get a lot of videos and photos with Faith, and so did Josh's parents. Josh's parents live in North Carolina, so it wasn't too far of a trip for them to come see their granddaughter, and both his mom and his dad were able to meet her. Um, in the short time that we had her, we tried to do things with her that we like to do and share those things with her. So we got to hold her skin to skin, the koala care. We tried to do that as much as possible. And when we did that, Josh watched, I can't remember the game, but Josh really loves football. So he was able to watch a football game with her. And I really like pageantry. So I was able to pull YouTube up and pull up the 2018 Miss Universe pageant, which is my favorite one. It's when Catriona Gray from the Philippines won, and I'm a quarter Filipino. So that was my favorite one. And I got to share that with her. We also got to give her a bath. And talking about organizations, Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep was wonderful. We were able to get some really great photos with her while she was alive. I think it was her 3rd day that she was alive. We got to do photos with Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. And then after she passed, they did some photos with us as well.
What great memories! I mean, just squeezing in a lifeline. Having listened to new and expectant parent phone calls when I was a kid, back before cell phones, the landline would ring at our house, and I'd say, "Mom, Chris, it's for you. It's a soft call." Hopefully, I wasn't rude as like a 10-year-old answering the phone. But then I remember hearing these conversations from one side of Chris Holiday's hearing count their toes and make every moment count and just enjoy these memories, and thinking of that. So what tender memories, tender mercies right there that you've had with Faith and sharing in some of those things that really make you who you are and showing that, having those memories. That's amazing. Um, so that all occurred while you were at the McDonald's house. Is that how that kind of worked? So by that point, you were out of the NICU and next door, or where were those things occurring that you were having these memories
So it was kind of all over the place.
all
Some of that
over?
happened while I was still a patient recovering. Some of it happened in the Ronald McDonald house, and then some of it happened while we were staying with Faith. We did not spend many nights at the Ronald McDonald house, but it was a place to keep our things, a place to have refuge if we needed it.
Hours or day with Faith? What was the grand total? Like what was that opportunity with her?
It was a full week. She passed away on her 8th day of life. So we didn't know if we were gonna get anything. So anything that she gave us was just, it was I feel like it was extra. And even while I was pregnant, we tried to make those memories with her. I found out about her trisomy right before Mother's Day. So I actually got to do something special for Mother's Day with her. Yeah.
That's neat. That's awesome. All right. So Faith lived a glorious 8 days. You guys made the most of it. She met her grandparents. Everybody was around, just enjoying her and what she provides. And I've seen since I met you at conference a few times now, you guys carry usually a big picture of her sometimes with you for videos and things. What kind of things do
Yeah.
you have around that help you remember faith? Are there any sort of
Well,
um
yeah, I can show you
think you
my
were
little
warned?
faith
Yeah.
bear. Yeah, this is our faith bear. Um, I got this for Josh. I don't remember what I got it for him for, if it was Father's Day or his birthday or something like that, but I got it to him from Faith. So this is his, but we kind of share it now. But we brought it with us to the hospital, and one of my favorite pictures of Faith, she's right next to the bear, and they're almost the same size. She was tiny. She was about 3 pounds, 16 inches long. But one of my favorite pictures of her are with this bear. Uh, Another thing I have is a necklace here. That's I could go in. That's my daughter Faith. I have that, and I can't bring it with me, but I have a whole glass case full of her things. So a lot of people got her stuffed animals. They got her elephants. They got her more bears. People sent ornaments. We just had an outpouring of love since we've known about her trisomy, and that case is sitting in our bedroom with all of her little things. We call all of her animals her zoo. So when she was born, we packed up her zoo and we brought it to the NICU, and she got to have her zoo with her.
There's you. That's awesome.
Mhm.
So that's traveled from North Carolina to Utah now. And so they're in base with you at this time. So awesome. Always will be with you. Um, I know as far as after Faith's passing, what's helped you through? And I know we've talked, it's been a couple years now, but if you can recall maybe early days after passing, uh,
Yeah.
if you're comfortable with it, if you could maybe share some thoughts there, it might help some other families.
Yeah, it was a whole experience from the time we found out about the trisomy until today. It's Gosh, it's the hardest thing I've ever been through. I don't know if there's anything tougher. I mean, I'm sure there are, but in my life, this was the most challenging thing I've ever had to deal with. Our families have been amazing, um, supporting us, giving us the freedom to make the decisions that we did for our daughter without any judgment, and with only support and love was just incredible. Um, I did speak with some counselors after we lost her, um, and I'm glad that I did. One of the counselors that I talked to said that people typically deal with grief in one of two ways. You could either be a person who's a doer and you like to do a bunch of things, and that kind of helps you deal with your grief. And then there are people who are feelers and you feel your emotions very deeply. Both Josh and I are more on the doing side. We do feel our grief and we feel our emotions, but I don't think that we're the type to sit back and kind of like let the grief come to us. Our preference is to do things. So getting involved with soft was really therapeutic for me. Being able to give back to families who were going through the diagnosis, just like the families who had helped me. That I think was one of the most helpful things, um, that I ever did. Um, Josh does triathlons, so he kept going with the triathlons. I remember he had a race, that was like a week or the weekend after we got the notification, the screening back about the trisomy. And I asked him like, "Hey, you don't have to race this. You can sit this one out. We've been through a lot." And he said, "No, I want to do this race with her. We have her." So just like, I spent Mother's Day with her. He wanted to have his daughter there when he was racing, and he did so well. So that's why we have the big faith cutout, is I bring those to his races so that, I'm 5'4", I'm not tall. And sometimes there are a lot of people and it's kind of hard to see me. So all I do is I stick up that faith head and it gives him the motivation to keep going, and he also knows where I am. As for me, I mentioned that I like to do pageants. So after I lost faith, um, nothing about life felt normal. Like my body didn't feel normal because I was still recovering from childbirth and the C-section. I had just lost my daughter. Like I wasn't working. Nothing in my life was normal. And I felt like I needed something just to give me a sense of normalcy. So I decided at 6 weeks after having faith, I was going to do a pageant. And I did. I signed up at the last minute, wasn't really ready, had not worked out at all because I couldn't. Um, and I went in sharing her story with the judges and with the audience and just doing the best that I could as a dedication to her. And I ended up winning that pageant and going on to the international level and competing at an international level, sharing her story. And I ended up winning third runner up at the international pageant. And that was all in dedication to her. And I feel like it was beneficial in two ways. You know, it kind of helped me with my healing and it helped promote awareness of trisomy and it shared her story because I've heard that there are two times that a person dies. The first time is when they breathe their last breath. The second time is when people stop saying their name. So by me sharing her story, it's keeping her alive.
That's awesome. Both of you are very talented and dedicated, and I'm glad that you brought up seeing a counselor. I think
Mhm.
as days go by, I remember I'm a '90s kid. You had to just tough things out, and I think generations before that they did that even more so than our generation. We're about the same age, but I'm grateful that we're able to as a society and things like that. So thank you for sharing that. I know that's not always easy to say that you asked for help, you received that help, and helped maybe make sense of how you like to approach grief, and that you two are similar in that regard. But that it's not wrong to be on the feeling side, doing and
Not
feeling.
at
That's
all.
that's wonderful.
Hmm.
So thank you for sharing those thoughts. Again, our biggest hope is to tell these stories. One, because these children are amazing. They change us. They will change. And I'll speak for your child. I'll speak for Asher as a sibling. I was young when my sister passed away, Carrie. I only remember a little bit. So even though Asher wasn't born yet, your family dynamics will always be different, and you'll always have this view of life that just would not have been there without faith. So, not to tell you how your
Yeah.
family will be, but I really like speaking for the behalf of siblings in that, like, I'm a better person for having had Carrie be my sister, much
Hmm.
like any of my other siblings. So, what a wonderful thing, and a way to show honor, and you go after a couple of goals for a marathon or a triathlon, not just a marathon, triathlon, and the pageants in memory of Faith, and doing so as her mom and dad. What remarkable talent and stories and just perseverance. Way to help you. How is this, speaking of like altering you, or the sibling side? What about you? Have you? It's been a couple years now. What is it?
Hmm.
How many years since the
Three
passing?
years.
3 years.
It's been 3 years.
Uh,
Hmm.
how do you feel that you are as a person, having had Faith be your firstborn? Like, we, we may have
Sorry,
broke
Nick,
up
you
again.
froze again. I didn't hear anything. Could you repeat that,
Good
please?
news. The good news is it records locally, so we'll cut those out. But how have you, as Raliene Banks? I don't know your maiden name, but Raliene Banks, like you as a person, how has faith been in being in your heart? Has there been evidence of things that have changed you, now that it's been 3 years since her passing?
For sure. 100%. Um, I'm not the same person I was before her. If you had met me before Faith, that is a different Raylene than the Raylene today. Of course, there are elements of me that are still me, but Faith taught me a lot of things. The first is grace. She taught me to give myself grace, to give Josh grace, and to give others grace. Because having this diagnosis, you're hard on yourself because you wonder if it's something that you did wrong. And we have to remind ourselves that there's with trisomy, as far as I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, or somebody out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nothing that we did that caused it. And I had to talk myself into that. Um, Going through the grief process, we have to give each other grace as couples because we grieve in different ways. And sometimes the way that your spouse is grieving is not the same way that you're grieving, and that's okay. We all grieve in different ways, and we have to give other people grace. As I was going through Faith's diagnosis and her passing, people wanted to be really helpful. Um, they wanted to say the right things. Sometimes it wasn't the right thing, but that's not their fault. So I learned that people have good intentions, but sometimes the things that they say are hurtful. But how I feel shouldn't matter because what they meant was for good. Does that make sense? Like just giving other people grace for what they say. I remember after Faith had passed, I went to see one of my doctors and talking about having another child. And my doctor said that Faith was, well, she said the pregnancy, the whole experience, basically, she called it a bump in the road. And I remember that being so hurtful. I was just at the time so angry with this doctor that she had said that my daughter was a bump in the road. But then I had to step back and say, well, she doesn't understand what it's like to lose a child. She didn't understand that that was hurtful. I think she was really just trying to help me and tell me that I can have another child. Like it's not too late for me to have a child. I was healthy and there was a good chance that I could still have a baby in the future. And that's really what she meant. Um, Aside from the whole grace thing, Faith, um, she made me a different mother. Before I had her, I was very much, the quote unquote like boss girl or boss babe or whatever you want to call it. Like somebody who is very much into their career and all those kind of things. And that was me. I was a pilot for the Air Force. I wanted to have this career. Josh and I own a business, and doing all of those things were very important to me. And I always thought that I would just continue my career, maybe not with the Air Force, because there's only so much of that I think I could do. It's a very tough lifestyle, but I wanted to go on and, fly commercially for the airlines. That was something that was still available to me. I'm able to pass a commercial airline physical, just not the one for the Air Force. But I had wanted to do that. And after all of this happened with Faith, I changed my mind. It recaged me and it kind of taught me that life is really short and my career isn't always going to be there. At the end of my life, I'm not going to be thinking about my career and all the things that I did. I'm going to be thinking about my family. I'm going to be thinking about my faith. And I'm going to be thinking about all those memories that we had together. So the fact that I can't fly anymore for the Air Force is very okay because it's not the thing that makes me who I am. It's not the thing that makes my life rich and special. Like, yeah, it was great, but my family is what makes my life what it is. Um, and the last thing Faith taught me was that we don't always have tomorrow. Like when we had her, we just had to live every day as though we wouldn't get another one with her. So there's a lot of things that we put off, whether it's cleaning out your closet or running a marathon, stuff like that. Sometimes you just have to start now, whatever that step is to get you in the direction that you're wanting to go in. Just take that first little step because you don't know if you'll get the chance to do that later on. I actually ran a half marathon after I had Faith. It's been something that I've been wanting to do. Josh is really into triathlon, which involves running. And I thought, you know what? Maybe this is something that I can do kind of not with you because you're so fast. You're so much faster than me, but it's something that we could kind of have common ground on. So I ran a half marathon couple months after Faith had passed away. And both Josh and I ran this. So he just took off and kind of smoked me. And I ran it with one of my coworkers, a good friend of mine. And half marathon is about 13 miles. When we got to about the 12-mile mark, I saw Josh standing there with the big fake cutout. And I'm like, oh, he finished and he's coming back to cheer me on. But what I didn't know was Josh didn't finish the race. The race happened in DC, and our house was not too far from the finish, like from the race course. So he had gone off course, went home, got the big Faith head, and came back to run the last mile with me and Faith. So we got to run that last mile together and finish together with the big Faith
That's
head.
awesome.
Mhm.
That's an awesome memory. The three of you finishing together.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So things so those were you guys did a lot, you just definitely on the doing side. So, let's talk about a couple years have passed. You find out news about Faith's little brother. Kind of tell us the last little bit. Get us up to speed about the Banks family. You guys have had a new addition and all that.
Yeah, we had, but what you probably don't know was I had a
Yeah.
miscarriage after Faith
Oh,
and before Asher. So, a little over a year after Faith passed away, I thought, I'm not over her passing, but I'm not grieving the same way that I used to. I think that I could manage another pregnancy. So I did get pregnant about a year after she had passed away. Um, and we were really excited and all the things, but it didn't look good. We went in for multiple ultrasounds and the baby had stopped growing at around 5 or 6 weeks. Didn't really progress past that, but I had stayed pregnant for about 12 weeks. I just kind of let it go naturally. So I officially miscarried the baby at about 12 weeks. Um, that was hard. That was hard. And I know that I'm not the only one that's experienced it. There's a couple of us that have our trisomy babies and praying for a rainbow baby, and then they end up miscarrying the child. Um, so I have two babies in heaven. Faith is one, and we named our other child Riley. And I was not ready to try and have another child immediately after that. I got the go ahead from the doctors saying, "Hey, you're fine. You're fine physically. If you want to try to have another child again, you can." And I just wasn't ready. So it took us a couple more months until I felt ready again to continue to try to grow our family. I didn't know if it was going to happen. Um, Gosh, at this point, I was already 40. I was 40 years old, and I was thinking, like, I am so old to have a child. So for Faith's birthday every year, we try to do something special. So last year on her birthday, we went on a cruise. I had never been on a cruise before, and Josh had always tried to convince me that cruises are great. And I'm like, well, we're just going to be on a boat and you don't really get to see the places that you're going to all that much. You only get a couple of hours, but you really like this. So let's give this cruise a try. And you know what? I loved the cruise. It was so relaxing. You don't have to think about anything. Like all the food is there, the gym is there, like all the coffee and whatever you want. It's all right there and it's so easy. But that cruise was so memorable to me because the second day of our cruise, I found out I was pregnant with Asher. And I was scared, but also very, very thankful because I wasn't sure if I could even have another child because I just felt like, 40, that's such a, I feel like doctors kind of sometimes scare you about having kids in your 40s. Um, so with Asher, every appointment was nerve wracking, but we got the genetic screening again, and that came back normal. Everything was normal. And once I got that genetic screening back, I kind of just breathed a sigh of relief because it was a good sign that we were going to get to keep this one. And after losing two babies, um, you know, all our kids are special, but Asher was just, he was really something for us. And we chose his name, Asher, because Asher means happy and it means blessing. And that's exactly what he was to us. He was our little happy blessing. Yeah, I can hear him squealing right now. Like he's super happy.
Yes, he probably wants you. He's like, "Dad, I've had enough of you. I'm ready for mom." What a
Oh, they're
wonderful
watching
thing.
football. They're good.
Oh, well, they're good. Um, so many great memories, so many, heartaches that turn into, those rainbows, those joys, those rays of light. Um, I know a lot of families, there's a lot in common with families across the globe that experience the sadness that comes with a trisomy diagnosis. I mean, it's not all what you want,
Mhm.
but there is this element of that these wonderful children, no matter the length they are with families, they bring joy, they bring happiness amongst the sorrow, the sadness, and anything else negative. There's so much light and so much positive. And so, um, quite the family with Faith and Riley and Asher, and then you and Josh. What a wonderful family. Um, and what I take most, that I, just admire about you is your willingness to give back. Um, your willingness to kind of pay some of that love and attention you received during those trying times to others. And so, as part of our new and expectant parent group that literally gets on the phone and will talk with people, Raylene, thank you for all you've done. We've had many volunteers over the 40 years of Soft being around. Um, but we're always grateful for anyone and everyone that gives just that ray of hope to another person, another mom, another dad that just needs to hear there's a reason. Just, you know, take one step at a time. So thank you again for all of the volunteer work you do. Now, you've got some bigger plans. I'm not sure if this is the place or time you want to talk about some of your other future goals, but by all means, you can. I know you're quite the successful, passionate person. So if this is a place you want to talk about some of your ideas, by all means. Otherwise, we can keep telling memories. But is there anything else you want to share with the Soft family and with anyone listening to this podcast, Raylene?
Um, yeah, the one thing that I tell all of the parents that I meet who have a trisomy diagnosis is that there are no wrong decisions for your child. This can get kind of controversial with how to care for a child that has trisomy 13, 18, or any of those diagnoses that we deem life limiting. Lots of different opinions out there, and there's so many roads that you can go down. But what I tell all the families is that as long as you are making the decision for your child with love, it's not going to be the wrong one. You know, People can give us advice all day, but nobody is going to have to live with the decisions that we make. Like my friends can tell me to do or that I should do whatever, X, Y, or Z. But at the end of the day, I'm the one that's making the decision, not them. I'm the one that's going to have to live with it. And, sometimes I find myself questioning the decisions that I made for Faith, wondering if it was the right one. But I have my husband with me who talks some sense into me, and he's like, we didn't have all the information in the world when we had Faith. We had to make the decisions we made with her with the information we had at the time. And we did. We did the best that we could with what we were given. And going back to grace, I just have to give myself grace again because what has happened has happened. And I did the very best that I could for her, and I did it with love. Um, So that's one piece of advice that I would give to anybody who's dealing with something like this, where there's really, really tough decisions that are life altering and you can't go back and change them after they're done for the most part. Um, Speeding up to what I'm doing now, we just launched our nonprofit. It's called Crowned with Faith. And I had mentioned before that I had worked with or I had been served by Isaiah's Promise, and they gave us so many beautiful things to help us remember faith. And I thought, well, why can't I do something like that? Like I like to do crafty type things. Why can't I provide some things for these families that I have been helping out through a nonprofit organization? So, like I showed you this necklace right here. This is something that I made with Faith's picture on it. So I started to do that for some of the families that I've talked to. And hopefully it'll just be a reminder, not only of their child, but that there are others out there that are thinking of them and that are on their side and that are praying for them as well.
That's awesome. The fact that you want to give back and help the next parent, remarkable. Um, really, I think you summed up best what we at Soft. I mean, that's why I think you felt our heart when you went to that first conference in Virginia. But we really want to support families, and from the beginning of Soft, we just are there to connect. There's power in being able to give a hug, to be able to have a smile to another parent that has walked this path, to be able to give words of encouragement, to hug when you're sad, to high five at the big news, awesome news. I remember the excitement amongst Soft members when you told us that Asher was, we're expecting Asher and birth of Asher, and just the joy that we're like family now, basically, right? So another set of cousins and reunions you have to now participate in, but it's just there to be there for you. And that's the magical thing about Soft is every family has their journey, and we work really hard to not have any judgment or any sort of um because decisions made for that day need to be the right one for their family, and that's all that matters for that child, for that family, for those parents. And so what a wonderful way that you've led that by example, and you have that in your heart. So again, thank you for all you do for other families. Thank you for what you've done for my family, and for just being a support to Soft and everything in between. What a wonderful person you are. As far as your story about faith, thank you for sharing. We hope that this can be shared, spread throughout. Those that have liked this story, that have maybe found comfort in it. For those future parents that are watching this, because we hope that we can flood the internet with more information, more awareness, so that decisions can be made based on a whole observation of a lot of different families and a lot of experiences. Feel free to share this comment, and if needs be, connect with Soft, and we'd be happy to partner you up with a fellow parent to give you some words of encouragement and help you on your way. So thank you for everyone listening. We appreciate you. The Banks family, tell Josh hello. Next time we'll get him in on a video. We'll get Asher if time permits and what have you, but if not, we'll see you at conference. So thank you again, Raliene. Thank you, Banks family. Thank you, Faith. Thank you, Asher. Thank you, Riley. Thank you, Josh. So again, we love you so much. Everyone listening, again, like, comment, share, spread the good news and the update news about all things Trisomy. And till next time, thank you, everybody.